were completely full of this bus burning, and I had been active in the civil rights movement in Chicago. We picketed Woolworths, we did that kind of thing. But this was a total escalation of violence. This was something way, way beyond that. And, you know, we talk about technology. What was the new tech that made it possible for this news story to be known in Moscow and Paris and London, everywhere?
Satellite?
The fax machine. You're way ahead. No, the new technology allowed pictures to be sent all over. So everywhere in the world, including in Moscow, which is very important because our then president, JFK, was in very deep conversations about the denouement of the Cold War. What were we going to, in fact, going to have a nuclear Armageddon in 1961? That was what was feared. So the fax machine made it possible for this uprising of upwelling of concern about the problems of the American South. The fact that there were white people who were willing to kill black people and their white supporters for trying to integrate things in the South. So there I was coming home from my job. I typed all day, and then I got on the bus and I was going across town, and I heard this voice from a radio. Somebody had a little pocket radio, and the voice said, "We want you to be a freedom rider. We want you to go to Mississippi, and we want you to help us create integration in Mississippi, in the South." Not the exact words, but that was the tenor of the substance. But much more important was the voice, the deep, very compelling preacher's voice. It was Jim Farmer, and I never met him actually, but I heard his voice and it just struck me, and I said, "Who's he talking to?" And I looked to my left and I looked to my right, and I said, "You know, I think he's talking to me." And I brought to that moment this epiphany that it was time for me to stand up and to take a stand in something that I deeply believed in, that from my Jewish religious background, which was pretty non-conventional, but still righteous, not righteous so much as still fierce. Fierce is the right. It was running around in my head. The fact that I had some responsibility to make the world a better, more righteous place. So for whatever reasons, there I was, and in that moment, I had realized that I was going to go and be a freedom rider. So I did. And I mean, there were many other steps in between. There's the telephone call to my mother, which was very difficult in Los Angeles, and many other things. But when by the time I was enrolled and I got to Nashville and I got my training in nonviolence, as I say somewhere in the book, I'm not sure I can do that. I'm not sure that if somebody comes at me with a baseball bat, that I'm going to be able to not respond. I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but it's hard to think about that. So we got on the bus. There were 6 of us. We got off the bus in Jackson, and in Jackson, the 3 of us who were white went this way, and the 3 of us who were black went that way. We went into the waiting room that was labeled Negroes intrastate passengers only. And the African American guys went into the one that said whites only, intrastate passengers. The state of Mississippi thought that by the legalism of saying this is only for intrastate passengers, not interstate passengers, that they could avoid the federal ICC, but they couldn't. They didn't. The court said, nah, that's not what we're going to do. So we went into these separate waiting rooms, and inside the one that was labeled for Negro passengers, there wasn't a single African American person in that place. It was just filled with white cops. Actually, I should say rednecked cops, so maybe they weren't quite all white. They confronted us, and our spokesperson, John Gager, said to them, we are just, they said, move on, y'all move on. And John said, we are moving, because we had just walked in. And I said, I just wanted to use the restroom. That's my recollection of it anyway. And they immediately said, y'all are under arrest. So they arrested us just essentially for being in this location, and hustled us out through the rear door of the station and put us into a Black Mariah, into a police department van for carrying prisoners. And a few minutes later, after they put us in, a few minutes later, they brought out the 3 black divinity students who had gone in the other waiting room and pushed them into, I mean, these were not nice people. Anyway, they pushed the other 3 into our van and slammed the door and revved up the engine and started off down the street in Jackson, Mississippi. And the 6 of us in the back, not only did we start laughing, but we started singing, and to the great annoyance of our drivers. And we kept looking at each other and saying, look at us, we have integrated public transportation in Mississippi. So that's how I got thrown in jail. The jails in Jackson, Mississippi were fairly quickly filled up. There were, over a period of about 6 months,